Sandy Says Read. Welcome to the channel. Tonight we are going to do the book tag. What are the top 5 books that have most influenced me as a reader? And I think I'm going to sneak in what has also influenced me as a writer, because the first book this evening that we're going to talk about is Beowulf. When I was in high school, I discovered Beowulf, and then I also had to read this when I was in college. And I say had to, folks, I got to read this when I was in college, and I got to read it in Old English. I read it as part of my History of the English Language course, and I also took a course on Middle English literature, and we didn't read Beowulf in that one, but you got to see how the language developed, from its roots, and awesome stuff. We can talk about that on this channel in another video, because right now we're talking about Beowulf. Awesome. This is the Claber edited edition. My mom got me this as a gift when I was in college, and it is fantastic because it's got, footnotes and stuff in here to help you if you've forgotten some of your Old English, as I have. But one of the interesting things about the Old English language is there are like millions of ways to say how to kill someone, because you can kill them with a sword, you can kill them with a knife, you can kill them with a dull blade, with a sharp blade. I mean, there's all these different ways to kill someone, and there's like offsmeden, just all these different ways to kill someone in Old English language that are just nifty and cool. But I also have Beowulf in a version that can be read now by me, because I've forgotten so much of the Old English information that I used to have in my brain. It's just gone. I should get back into reading some of that stuff so that I can have it again, because it's just such a rich, interesting stuff to have in your brain, so that when you're reading fantasy today, you can kind of see the roots of some of this fantastical information. I mean, The Hobbit, you read Lord of the Rings series, anything by Tolkien, and by the way, that's one of the books that has influenced me, is The Hobbit. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anything that Tolkien has written, and you can see those Old English influences in there, because he was a professor of Old English, and I just become so jealous as I'm reading his work. Let's stop for just a moment and appreciate the name of the dragon, Smaug. J.R.R. Tolkien, I have like this love-hate relationship with him when it comes to the names of his characters. Let's just talk about The Hobbit now. That's one of the books that has influenced me when I was, when I was in 6th grade, maybe 7th grade. My dad brought home the paperback book of The Hobbit. Here, read this. It was fantastic. I loved it. It was great. And so I was on my fantasy kick from then on. The name of the dragon, Smaug, is just perfect. I mean, listen to the way it rolls off your lips. Smaug. This is a great name for a dragon right there. And then think about the word smog. Smog and smoke coming out of a dragon. I mean, just everything about it is wonderful. Wonderful. Tolkien, you took the best name for a dragon ever, and now no other fantasy author can use that name for a dragon, because you used it. So you see my love-hate relationship with that. So when I was ready to name my dragons in my series, Smaug was taken. Smaug was gone. It's not like I could use it and no one would know, because everyone would know. So I named my dragon Malachi. And yes, he is all that. I also named one of my dragons Cinder. Think about that for a second. Cinder. Get it? All right. Other books that have influenced me, besides Beowulf and The Hobbit. Oh, and the reason I'm not holding up The Hobbit, let me tell you a little something. If you're a female watching my channel, just be aware that if you have a boyfriend and or husband in your life, don't let them sneak away with any of your books, especially books that you really like and really enjoy. Watch them as they're walking out with your books. Get those books back. Right. Another book that has influenced me greatly, and really anyone who knows me should know this, is the Holy Bible. And I got this version is also in Spanish, because I've been trying to learn Spanish. I took Spanish in high school and in college. I can't speak Spanish. You can learn these languages in a classroom setting, and you're not learning these languages. I think I have to go to Spain and be immersed in it. Go to Mexico, be immersed in it. And even then, you're getting different versions of the language when you're in these different countries. Portuguese and different versions of it. But anyway, you can see there's like the Spanish version on one side and then the English version on the other. That way it could kind of help me in learning. Of course, the Bible is an influence in my life. Gee whiz, it's only the written word of my Savior. Then, one of the top 5 books that influenced me greatly was published in 1972. And it is 101 Animal Stories. Okay, I know, it's a children's book. But it influenced me because it was published when I was 2 years old. And my mom and my dad, my parents, used to read from this book to me when I was a child. And then as I got older and I was learning to read, I was learning to read out of this book. And also, you know, the See Jane, See Dick, See... wasn't Tim the cat? I learned from those books as well before I started, you know, kindergarten and such. But this was one of those first books that I was learning to read from. I mean, you can see how, like, worn it is here. The binding is kind of worn, and down below the binding is kind of worn. I've kept this book forever, you know, I mean, 1972, you guys. And my favorite story, which is actually a poem, my favorite in this book is The Caterpillar's Song. Look at Priscilla the caterpillar. She's all tied up in a knot. Isn't that great? Because she twists and she turns. And let's see, I twist, I coil, I turn and wind, and sometimes find I've tied a knot. Isn't that great? As a little kid, that is awesome. And I've always enjoyed that one. And this is one of those books that really influenced me because it's one of those books that helped teach me to read. At the end of my senior year in high school, I got a pet turtle. Her name is Joshua. Because when turtles are, you know, size of a quarter, this big, you can't tell if they're boys or girls. So Joshua came to live with me, and a friend of mine actually kept her for the summer because my parents didn't want to have another pet in the house. So Joshua went to college with me. Joshua is still with me now. She's 29 years old, and she's the size of a dinner plate now. But Joshua and my mom's pet turtle, they kind of got me interested in turtles. So when I went to college and I had to write a theme paper, I wanted to write about turtles. I was looking up sea turtle information, and I got this book by Archie Carr. Dr. Carr had written So Excellent a Fish. Now, this is not the book that I checked out of the library. The one in the library was like a hardcover first edition kind of thing. This one I got at a museum here in Florida. This book is amazing. Dr. Carr was amazing. I fell in love with sea turtles because of this man. I became a sea turtle conservationist because of this man. There's a long story involved, but when I moved to Florida, I got involved with Turtle Time down in Lee County, Collier County, and I patrolled Bonita Beach for 9 summers while I lived down there so that I could help work with sea turtle conservation. I have helped and picked up and helped baby sea turtles because of this man. I use canvas bags to do my grocery shopping instead of plastic bags because of this man. I crusade for non-use of single-use straws because of this man. I want to save sea turtles because Dr. Archie Carr got me to love them. And they're wonderful. I don't know if any of you guys out there on the channel have ever seen a sea turtle in person. They're so cute, especially the babies. Oh my gosh. I fully encourage you to watch a program about sea turtles. I encourage you to get this book and read it because his love of the sea turtles will shine through, and you will become addicted to sea turtles too. When we talk about the top 5 books that have influenced me most, we of course have to talk about Jane Eyre. I love this book. I love this story. I love Charlotte Bronte. I think that the story itself influenced me first, and then I started looking into Charlotte herself and what she went through and what her family went through and just all that she had to to do in her life to get to the point where she got Jane Eyre published. And I realized that she was an influence on my life as well, not just Jane Eyre. I don't know what else to say about that. We're going to have to do like a full video on just my Bronte stuff at some point on this channel, because Charlotte Bronte and her family have had so much influence on the type of literature I enjoy, and Charlotte has had an influence on my writing style too. Not just my weird punctuation, but also on some of the things that I just find intriguing to write and to say and to put into the books. Yeah, we're going to have to do just a whole spiel on the Brontes at some point. But Jane Eyre has definitely had an influence on me. Okay, the final book that I'm going to say was the most influential in my life. There are so many more. Oh my gosh, so many books that have been influential. I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird was influential because after I read it in school, we had to do a project. And my project was to write a sequel to Kill a Mockingbird. I don't remember what I called it. It was not Go Set a Watchman. But I did win first prize. I have a ribbon around here somewhere for winning that. So that kind of reaffirmed that writing was something I could and wanted to do. To Kill a Mockingbird was influential in my life. The Hobbit, we've mentioned, was influential in my life, but that whole series, the whole Lord of the Rings series, was influential in my life. The books that have been influential, I mean, we could sit here for hours and discuss those, and let's do so in the comments below. I mean, let's get a running list of things that influenced us, because like the Little House on the Prairie series, I reread that series every summer. The Nancy Drew books, I would check those out from the library and read them. Trixie Belden, I would check those out from the library and read them. The Hardy Boys, I would check those out from the library and read them. Helen Keller, I reread the Helen Keller story every summer. You have to understand, my parents didn't have a lot of money. We were not loaded, okay? So buying new books wasn't something I got to do all the time. I mean, when my dad brought home The Hobbit for me to read, that was awesome and great. Here's a book just out of the blue. And I got to read it, and it was awesome, and I loved it. So, getting a new book was something pretty great, okay? So rereading these books over the summers was kind of the thing that I did. I would sit in my room and reread these books, the Little House series, the Helen Keller story, just the Anne of Green Gables series. I would reread these things, so they were all a big influence to me. But this last book that I'm going to talk about, it's a little bit self-serving. So if this starts to feel spammy to you, you can turn this particular video off, come back another time and see what else I have on the channel. But I've got to be honest with you guys. The story of Amanda Charisse and Nigel Timon has been a big influence in my life. Okay, now I hope you won't find it too self-serving if I talk about one of my books that has had a great influence on me. But, I mean, the truth of the matter is this story that I wrote, it's been with me since junior high. I started writing about Amanda Charisse when I was in junior high school. I mean, I saw her in my mind's eye back when I was a preteen, and I knew that I wanted to write her story. So when that all culminated in sitting down face to face with a publisher, getting him excited about the story, and getting him to offer me a contract to put this story out there for readers, it was obviously a huge influence on my life. It was a huge influence. So I've got to talk about it at least a little bit. I've got to show you that one of the books that has had a huge influence on my life is the Choices Meant for God's series. And the final book in the trilogy, Choices Meant for All, is the one that I've picked out to talk about because it was the culmination of the trilogy. It was the culmination of the story. It was the culmination of just years of editing, years of pulling the story, wrapping the story up. The entire story was done when I sat down to talk to the publisher, but the first two books came out, and then, you know, I had some medical issues that I had to get through, and putting this book to bed took some time. I rewrote this one. I rewrote it at least twice. So it was written, then it got rewritten at least twice, completely rewritten at least twice. I don't know how many drafts of this thing I had on my computers, plural, over the years, because it just was never quite right until I got that final draft done. I went through some dark days, really dark days during my illness and also in my private life. And so one of the drafts especially was just wrong, and was not the right story. So this book had a huge influence on my life, huge. But the ending isn't worth it all. Okay, so you guys, I know that was more than 5 books, but there are just so many good books out there, so many books that have been influential in my life, in my private life, in my writing life, in just the way I look at things, the way I view the world. Ah, my goodness. And I know you guys have got more than 5 books too. So comment in the comments below. Let me know what kind of books have influenced you, what kind of books you just cannot imagine your life without. And, you know, put them in the comments below. Let's discuss them. Let's talk about them. That's what this channel is for. And, you know, hey, if you liked this video, give it a like, and, you know, hit the little subscribe button so that you can subscribe, and, you know, hit the little bell button so that the next time I have something entertaining and fun for you, you'll get notified. And thank you so much.